sing it. We will rock you.
Welcome in to another episode of Draft Dads, episode 5, our top 20 quarterback and tight end rankings. I'm your host, Dave Campbell. With me, Matt Cherry.
How you doing today, Dave?
Well, man.
You still feeling a little under the weather?
Not feeling so hot, feeling a little sick. I went to a 2-year-old's birthday party over the weekend. I think I might have got a little something from somebody over there.
Well, hopefully these 2 empty Monster cans you have sitting here are helping you out.
You guys are going to get Robitussin Dave today, so I'm going to bear through it. There's no quitting in football.
You got the energy.
Yeah, no sick days, man. I'm here. We're ready to put out some content today. So a little bit about today's episode. We are going to jump into what you missed in the NFL over the past week, and then jump into our top 20 quarterback and tight end rankings. And then we've got a couple dad moments for you guys. We are going to discuss Bailey's vaccines. We're done this week, so my daughter Bailey. Matt believes his D-Day is coming sooner than expected. And you guys got to hear this story. Matt believes his wife's water broke.
But it wasn't the water, so I'll tell you about it later today.
Apparently it wasn't water, so that story is going to be coming up for you guys. So let's hit it first. What you missed around the league over the past week. We'll touch base on this one real quick. Tom Brady seems to be non-committal on joining the team this season. And a fellow Patriot is kind of in the same boat, Rob Gronkowski. So if you're a Tom Brady or a Rob Gronkowski owner right now, status is just kind of up in the air.
I feel differently about each guy, too. Like, I feel like there's no way that Tom Brady doesn't come back next year just with the competitive spirit that we all know from him and him losing the Super Bowl in the way that he did. I feel like there's no way he doesn't come back to New England this coming season. But Gronk, on the other hand, the whole situation after the Super Bowl up until now has seemed a little bit fishy. And, I don't know what's a better chance, if he's a Patriot in 2018 or if he's retiring or if he's with another team. It's something that we're going to have to just sit here and wait to see how it all plays out.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so we'll also touch base real quick. Reuben Foster, last year's top 10 talent, went to the 49ers, slipped to 31, now facing up to 11 years in prison.
It's crazy. In early mocks last year, guess who they had taking Reuben Foster very early in the draft?
Man. The Saints.
The Cincinnati Bengals.
The Bengals.
And how much trouble would people be giving the Bengals if they took another one of these prison guys? But he was rumored to be going to them at number 9 overall until later he started to dip in the draft.
So, it's one of those things. I've seen people posting a lot of stuff. They talk about these guys with these off-field issues and to completely avoid them. But, Reuben Foster actually had a really good year last year. I don't completely agree with staying away from super talented guys and trying to put them in the best situation possible. But, it's just bad circumstance.
And John Lynch was really touted for that draft pick, too.
It was a good pick at the time. All right, so a couple big moves. Cam Meredith is a Saint, much like Dorothy Mantooth.
Dorothy Mantooth is a Saint.
So I'm a Saints fan. I love it. I'm glad to see him next to Mike Thomas and Ted Ginn. I think it's going to be a good asset for the team. I think it kind of checks off a box for them that they're not going to have to fill in the draft.
Yeah, I said it last week. I think he's relevant in that offense for sure. He showed that he could put up numbers with mediocre QB play in Chicago. Mm-hmm. So I think now pairing him with Drew Brees, I think too. Drew Brees threw 23 touchdown passes this year. That can only go up. So I think there's going to be a fair share of touchdowns for him to catch this year too in New Orleans.
He'll look good. I think he's got a wide receiver 2 potential. Speaking of wide receiver 2 potential, Dez Bryant gets released. I think we called this.
We did.
Back on episode 1.
Mm-hmm.
So, it happened. If you guys didn't listen in and weren't listening to us, then shame on you guys. So, not surprised. We weren't surprised. The cap hit was going to be big, but I think it's beyond the cap hit. I think it's Jason Garrett didn't really care for Des Bryant. He's had 3 down seasons in a row, so not really Des Bryant-like after his big 4 seasons there. And, Dak Prescott and Des Bryant just never really hit it off. So Allen Hurns is the next guy up. Maybe Dallas drafts a wide receiver.
The current mocks do have them taking Calvin Ridley if he's there in the middle of the first round there. If he's there, looks like they're going to take Calvin Ridley. I mean, and it makes sense. Even though it is a down wide receiver class, I spoke to that on the podcast last week too. They need some young talent there, and they need somebody to blow the top off the defense for sure.
They're definitely going to need help. It's not going to be Allen Hurns and Cole Beasley and Terrence
and
Williams.
old man Jason Witten, who's
Jason Witten
confirmed
out there
that
in
he's
the
coming
cane.
back. So I don't know. I mean,
it's a knock to Dak Prescott for sure.
I agree, and I still think Dez has something in the tank. I do think that he will help a team this year. Now, which team that is, we don't know. But I mean, 73 career touchdown passes, all the prolific wide receivers out in Dallas, and he's the career leader in touchdown passes out there. I still think he's going to help somebody this year. I did hear that the latest rumors have him connected to the Giants, which would be very interesting, pairing him up with OBJ.
There's no way. So, the whole OBJ rumors was his off-field issues.
Mm-hmm.
So, you're going to bring in a guy like Des Bryant, just another one of these guys who's just known for their antics.
Hey,
I don't see it happening.
They brought in Brandon Marshall to go beside him. I mean, Brandon Marshall has his past of off the field. Maybe it's not quite like Des Bryant, but you never know. They need help.
So the new GM for the Giants actually came from Carolina, and he was the one responsible for the release of Josh Norman and Steve Smith.
Mm-hmm.
So both big personality guys. I don't think there's any chance that he goes to the Giants. There's rumors going to Houston. I don't know if you saw that. Des Bryant decided to add basically all these Houston players on social media, and also added Paul Wall. Can you make me a grill?
Buy me a grill.
Yeah. I'll tell you where I like Des Bryant is anywhere in the NFC West. So I think Arizona would be a great spot. I think the Rams could be a sneaky spot, even though they've got a lot of money to spend.
You got to think about a team that already has that guy that blows the top off of the defense. I could see it in Arizona. I could see it working there.
49ers,
Seattle. They've needed. And again, out in San Francisco, you've got Dreamboat Jimmy Garoppolo, and you've got the Marquise Goodwin over the top. Bring in Des Bryant underneath. I think
Pierre Garçon.
I think it's a great fit.
Nice possession guy on the outside.
Yep.
We'll see. I mean, so far it's Wednesday and nobody's biting on Dez. So let's jump into another guy who's been released and does not have a team with no bites on him. C.J. Anderson.
I'll just start it off by saying I think C.J. Anderson is good. I think
he's talented.
1,000
yards
yards he's very
last year.
talented, and when he's healthy, guy breaks tackles, he bounces off guys, he's big, he's fast, he hits the hole quickly. He worked really well within that zone blocking scheme in Denver as well. Just not a ton of interest. I know the guy has been ridden with injuries over the year, and I will say I had him on 2 big league teams last year, and I was a seller of C.J. Anderson after he put up a huge game in week 2. I believe it was 120 yards and 2 touchdowns. And that was one of the best moves I made the entire season. But he's another guy. I mean, he's been around a little while, but he hasn't played a whole lot. So I still think he's got something in the tank.
You know who he reminds me of?
Who's that?
Carlos Hyde.
I agree. And even from body type, running style, where they're at in their career, I agree. That's a good comparison.
So C.J. Anderson, I mean, does Devontae Booker get a bump up? I mean, it's got to be just temporary, right?
I think so. I mean, I think the time may have already worn out on Devontae Booker. The guy's had fumbling issues, hasn't carried it that well within his 2 years there.
3.6 yard per carry.
Not impressive.
he's not looked good when he's had the opportunity. He's 26 years old already too. Jamal Charles didn't look like Jamal Charles last year. Is there anywhere you could see C.J. Anderson landing? I mean, it would make sense to you as a good fit. Maybe he's not that 100% feature back, a 3-down guy anymore, but
I think he could be a great change of pace back. So I think, again, we've already talked about the New York Giants. If you're the New York Giants, you're currently rumored to take Saquon Barkley right now at number 2 overall. That's where they seem to be trending. I think C.J. Anderson is a great complement to Saquon Barkley in that offense. I mean, Saquon Barkley can't come in and carry it 25 to 28 times every game.
You think C.J. Anderson and Saquon both could go to the Giants? Is that what you're hinting at?
Yeah, absolutely.
With Jonathan Stewart?
They've always got 3 backs there.
Sure, that's fair.
Orleans Dark was out the door now, but they always seem to, again, just like the Patriots, they seem to feature several running backs. So I could see it happening.
I think if the Giants don't take Saquon at 2, I think he's got a real possibility to go to Denver now.
Yeah.
At number 5.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of where I see him going. I honestly don't think the Browns are going to take him at 4. I don't.
Yeah.
I think they might go Denzel Ward, or maybe they take Chubb. To stick him on the line with Myles Garrett.
Yep.
There's a lot of holes there, so
you may need to be careful with C.J. Anderson too. He reminds me a lot of Alfred Morris when he left Washington. Same type of runners, not your most athletic guys, and Alfred Morris hasn't really done anything since he went to Dallas. So it'll be an interesting one to watch.
Alfred Morris, no team right now.
Yeah, I think he still has relevance depending on the situation, but we'll have to keep an eye on it.
Yeah, so that's going to wrap up kind of the news around the league. So let's hit it off our top 20 quarterback ranks. So we'll go through our list. We'll go one for one. I'll give you my guy, and then Matt will give you his.
And I will tell you, Dave and I's pretty much our top 12. We had nobody within more than 3 of each other. So everybody at the top was pretty close, but we do have some good separation in our rankings from 12 to 20. So we'll get into those a little later.
So let's jump into it. My number 1 guy, bouncing back off of his injury, broken collarbone, medically cleared today, I saw, Aaron Rodgers.
Hell, he was medically cleared in the playoffs and came out with a giant raw scar on his shoulder and played a game.
So Aaron Rodgers is my number 1.
I'm standing over here discount double checking, just so you know, and I don't know if you could hear Dave laughing, but that's what I've been doing.
Aaron Rodgers doesn't have his guy, though. Jordy Nelson's gone. I saw a stat. Aaron Rodgers completed 61% of his passes without Jordy Nelson on the field, and he's at 67% with.
It's a great stat.
How about this one also? In 2014, Aaron Rodgers had Devontae Adams benched for 8 plays for messing up a route. Into him.
You do got to give, Devontae Adams was a rookie then, so you got to give him a little bit of a pass there, but because I'm loving the Devontae Adams.
Everybody's sipping the Devontae Adams Kool-Aid. They want him to be Aaron Rodgers' number 1 guy so bad.
I just seen him getting in the end zone almost every week last year, even with a scrub quarterback after Rodgers went down. So that's what I'm seeing.
So even though Aaron Rodgers missed a lot of time last year, he still has 313 touchdowns over 10 seasons. So, that's 30 touchdowns a season.
Yeah.
That would have put him in the top 4 last year. Just off that alone.
Super consistent, and people don't talk enough about in fantasy in most formats now where we're doing -2 for interceptions and fumbles. He does not turn the ball over. And even being a running quarterback, he barely turns the ball over, but barely throws picks, barely fumbles. So that's another, and kind of on the other side of things, you don't get a lot of negatives out of Aaron Rodgers either.
Matt, who's your number 1?
My number 1, along with Dave here, Aaron Rodgers. He's obviously losing Jordy, and I get it, but he's came out this week and said he wants more of a role in decisions with players and everything. I still think he is the most talented quarterback. I think he is the best quarterback. And when healthy, the guy will throw for 35 touchdowns. He'll limit turnovers, and he'll be a top 3 quarterback every year if healthy.
And then he'll do commercials.
He'll do a
With
lot of
Clay
commercials, and a lot of people won't like him, and he'll continuously break up with movie star girlfriends.
Number 2 for me, Russell Wilson. So most top 5 fantasy QB finishes in the last 10 years. Pretty amazing, considering he's only been in the league for 6 now. He has lost a couple pieces, lost Jimmy Graham, lost Paul Richardson. They got to get him some help out there. They've basically got Tyler Lockett and why am I blanking?
Doug Baldwin.
Doug Baldwin, yeah. And then
No
Nick
more Paul
Vannett.
Richardson.
Dude, they've got no running backs on that team. Chris Carson.
How many touchdowns came from the running back position? Again, not Russell Wilson last year in Seattle.
Oh my God, I did not own any running backs from Seattle.
It's a very easy answer. It's one. One rushing touchdown.
my-
They had 4 total. Russell Wilson had 3. Running backs had 1.
That is a terrible stat. That is terrible. So no wonder Russell Wilson led the league in passing touchdowns. So he had to get it done. So Matt, my number 2 guy, Russell Wilson, I think he finds a way to get it done. He's constantly scrambling around the pocket and just making plays.
Yeah, he's one of those guys. I mean, he's my number 2 as well. He's one of those guys where you can also count on him from the rushing side of things too. He's going to rush you for a couple touchdowns, and he's, some weeks he can even rush for 40, 50, 60, 70 yards. He's going to give that to you every week. And I think with the bad offensive line play, with a little bit of a bad supporting cast out there, I know Doug Baldwin has supplanted himself as a top end wide receiver, but they still don't have anybody that's crazy good out there. With his ability to escape and find somebody open, I feel like no matter what he does, I feel like no matter what, he gets it done from a fantasy perspective. So I'm slotting him in at number 2.
Locked and loaded. Number 3 for me, Carson Wentz. So coming off his ACL injury, I was kind of doing a little bit of research on Carson Wentz. So listen to this. This is from an orthopedic surgeon. He said, this is a quote. He says, "This is an ACL plus at least 2 ligaments. This is an RG3 equivalent, folks. This is worrisome. That's a long rehab." And he says, if it were my patient, it would take 9, 10, 11 months. So he was hurt in December. So, 11 months, you're talking November potentially for him to come back.
It's definitely scary.
They also said it was probably one of the worst ACL injuries that they had seen.
Interesting.
So, and they did compare it to RG3. He also went on to say that he recommended a knee brace for his career.
Yeah, and that can definitely limit you a little bit. I did hear today that he is running, which is
I
crazy.
did see that.
Again,
he's throwing passes.
We've still got several months before the season, and the guy's already running. It reminds me of the video they put out of Deshaun Watson already sprinting on a treadmill only a couple months after surgery. I feel like these days we've got to trust what we hear, from the teams, and when you see a guy like that running around,
he's a guy who relies on his legs. Do you remember the play last year against the Washington Redskins?
I do. I was watching that game.
Dead to rights. There was nothing but bodies around him, and next thing you know, you just got Carson Wentz just bootlegging around the outside and hits an 18-yard scramble.
He's fun to watch. He threw for 4 touchdowns that day. I remember I was out of town on business in the hotel room, and I was watching that game, and I think I needed 27 because I believe it was a Monday night game, and I think I needed 27 points out of Carson Wentz to win that week, and sure enough, Carson Wentz-esque, he delivered me a 31 spot.
Amazing. Yeah, you were loving Carson Wentz last year. So
until he went down.
He was so actually, even though he missed 3 games last year, he was still second in touchdowns.
Correct, one behind Russell Wilson.
So that's a pretty amazing stat. He was on pace for 40 and 4,000 yards through the air. So great year by Carson Wentz. We buy into the talent. I think he's going to be number 3.
And same thing with Russell Wilson with Carson Wentz. You're going to be able to get some of that fantasy production from the ground too. He's going to rush for a couple. Even with the brace and with the ACL, I get it. He might run a little less, but scrambling and running around is his game. So he's going to give you a little bit from that perspective as well.
Is he your 3?
So he's my 4.
Okay.
My number 3 would be your 4, which is Tom Brady. So why don't you tell me about your Tom Brady at number 4?
So Tom Brady at 4 for me. He's going to be 41 by the start of the season. He's lost a lot of pieces. So Amendola is
that
gone.
matter to Tom Brady?
No, it doesn't matter to Tom Brady.
Never
Tom
has,
Brady,
right?
Tom Brady can throw to you and me. I'm like a 5'9" white guy, 170 pounds. Just throw me out there. Tom Brady will hit me down the seam, right on the hands.
I'm a sloppy 170, and he could hit me. I mean, you're not as sloppy as me. I mean, but just look what happens with Tom Brady when you give him a Hall of Famer like Randy Moss. We all remember that season.
But he doesn't have that.
Doesn't matter. He just won't have a guy that scores 22 touchdowns.
He's got Edelman coming off his ACL. Gronk, maybe.
Still got Chris Hogan, Malcolm Mitchell. Wouldn't be surprised if they somehow add another piece. They still have Philip Dorsett there. I mean, where does he fall in all this?
I have not heard anything on Philip Dorsett at all.
Yeah, it's because he's not done anything since he's entered the league as a first-round pick.
Just a wasted talent. So I think that the Patriots take a wide receiver early, at least in the first or second round this year.
They should, and they need to. I mean, firstly, we don't know how much longer Tom Brady is going to be around. You know, like I said earlier, he's going to be around this season, but if he plays, he's putting up production. I mean, again, last year at 40, he led the NFL in passing yards. He was 3rd in touchdowns. He's going to be Tom Brady no matter who he has thrown to him. So that's why I'm firing him up as my number 3 quarterback this year.
I can't argue with it. I like Carson Wentz better. So my number 5 is going to be Kirk Cousins.
We actually agree on this one. I have him at number 5 as well. And some may tell us that we're slotting him in a little bit high, but I told you on the first podcast how I felt about Kirk Cousins. His current ADP is number 8, so we both have him a tad higher than what the consensus is. So tell me about Kirk Cousins, Dave.
I mean, this is easily Kirk Cousins' best team that he's been on. He's just got weapons at every single skill position. You have to believe that Kirk Cousins is not only going to succeed, but he's going to play the best of his career that he's played so far. So you've got too many weapons. I just have to believe that Kirk Cousins is a talented guy. What I like about Kirk Cousins is he doesn't lock into a guy. He actually goes through his progressions extremely quickly.
I agree.
So he finds an open man. He doesn't lock into one receiver. He's never locked into just one guy and fed him the ball. Mm-hmm. He's always been a guy who distributes the ball really well and just moves the offense.
He reminds me of before Sean Payton made the New Orleans Saints a running offense when they were passing the ball 40, 45 times a game.
Yeah.
It reminds me a lot of how Drew Brees used to disperse. You look at the stat sheet afterwards, and Drew Brees has completed a pass to 9 different people, a fullback, a couple running backs, a couple wide receivers. So I agree in that regard. And people just don't give Kirk Cousins enough credit, in my opinion. So last year he finished as the number 6 quarterback, which I feel like could be the quietest number 6 finish of all time. And that was only 22 fantasy points behind the number 2 ranked quarterback from last year, which was Cam Newton. So, a point a game or so away from being the 2nd quarterback. I mean, that's pretty impressive with super limited weapons.
So I think he's got a great chance to be a top 5 guy. So number 6 for me, Matt, Deshaun Watson. So I'll probably get a little bit of flack for this, but Deshaun Watson, he just looked electric last year. And I will tell you that I was not buying into Deshaun Watson going into the draft last year whatsoever. I didn't think it was going to compute to the NFL, but, he just proved me wrong. every single week that I watched Deshaun Watson, the 7 games that he played. I mean, he was electric.
He's going to be drafted high because of this electric nature that everybody sees in the upside. So you have him here at number 6. I have him down at number 9. His ADP right now is number 4.
Yeah.
So people are buying his upside. I think the ACL this early in his career, it's probably not looked at as bad if it was later in his career. And he's come back from an ACL before. He actually tore his ACL his senior year of high school, I believe, and he came back fine from that to play at Clemson. I actually wanted him to be a Buckeye back in those recruiting days, and I believe the Buckeyes were his second choice, but he decided to go to Clemson and then decided to trounce us in the national title semifinal. But anyways, I have him down a little bit lower at 9 just because he's a rookie last year, and we obviously saw the flash of complete brilliance, but I've just got to see a little more out of him to rank him that high.
I totally get it, and it's more of one of those, I'm basing him on playing a full season. So if he does, I think that he can probably be one of the most exciting players to watch.
And keep your eyes out for Will Fuller, too. If Deshaun Watson is playing and Will Fuller is playing, we've seen that connection put up 8 touchdowns in 5 games last year. So keep an eye on Will Fuller.
And DeAndre Hopkins, I mean,
absolutely, yeah.
He made both of them look amazing. So Matt, who's your number 6 guy?
So at number 6, I slotted in Cam Newton, our rushing touchdown quarterback guru. I feel like every year that guy's a lock for 5 to 8 touchdowns. They rarely hand the ball off to their running backs on the 1-yard line. They just take Cam Newton's 6'6", 250 frame and just jam it into the center. And I think Cam Newton, we all know the stats over the years about how he's not a very good passer. But from a fantasy perspective, he just seems to get the job done. In fantasy, you don't need him to complete 72% of his passes like Drew Brees. Hell, for all I care, he can complete 50% of his passes, but if he's throwing for 260 yards, a couple touchdowns, and rushing for yards, and rushing for a touchdown, he's putting up a good fantasy day. So I think just because of the guaranteed rushing output that you're going to get from Cam Newton, that's why I tend to slot him relatively high every year. He's currently being drafted as the number 6 quarterback, so I obviously have him slotted there. Dave, just a little bit lower. What do you think about Cam, Dave?
I think Cam Newton's Cam Newton. I think this is probably Cam Newton's worst team that he's had since he's been in the NFL. I just don't. I know he's not really one of those guys who's relied on weapons. He's kind of done everything himself, traditionally,
absolutely.
anyways. And has anyone who's owned Jonathan Stewart or a Carolina Panthers running back, they've hated Cam Newton because he vultures touchdowns. And, I mean, the guy could rush every single play and get 5 yards. I mean, he could just do a QB sneak every single time. Just from his frame, he's tough to bring down.
And he's durable as hell. I mean, he rarely sits out games.
I mean, he gets hit harder than any quarterback in the NFL. But I agree. I think Cam Newton's a great talent. I'm going to slot him at 8. I think that he's still a great player, but I think that he's going to get a lot more people loading the box against him this year just because he doesn't have as much talent. We'll see. I still think Cam Newton's a good player. Number 7 for me, my boy, Drew Brees.
Smooth Drew Brees.
Drew Brees is going to get it done this year. He looked good last year. I think this is probably one of the best offenses that he's had on paper. So Alvin Kamara, Mark Ingram, Cam Meredith is there, Michael Thomas, Ted Ginn's a great speed guy who can drop it to deep. And I know it was a little bit of a regression year for Drew Brees, definitely outside of the norm for him. Matt, where did he finish last year?
He was the number 9 QB last year, and that's what's crazy. I think we're all thinking, 23 touchdowns, Drew Brees, terrible season. I mean, he still finishes the QB 9. So not as low as what you would think, but he's always going to have the yards to back it up. I mean, 5,000 yards is like it's nothing to Drew
It's
Brees.
standard for Drew Brees.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he only had 270 a game last year. I think people are used to that 300 a game for Drew Brees, which he does have a career average close to 300 yards a game. So, a little touchdown regression, little yardage regression, but I think Drew Brees is still going to get it done.
Yeah, I mean, again, super impressive, kind of under the radar. Drew Brees, NFL record, 72% completion percentage last year. Actually led the league in throwing the ball down the field at 8.2 yards per attempt, but again, only 23 touchdowns. So I also have him slotted in at number 7, but I think he's definitely going to improve on his points output from last year.
So 8 for me, Cam Newton. Matt, who's your number 8 guy?
My number 8 guy is Andrew Luck. I know we've talked a little bit about he can be a little scary this year.
Wow.
Because we don't know what that shoulder's looking like, but you've got to buy the upside of Andrew Luck if he is healthy. Obviously, if we continue to learn as we get closer to the season that the shoulder's not right, or they're still worried about it, and he's throwing not full-size footballs, he's not growing out his neck beard in the right way. I think you drop him down. But for now, I'm ranking him here at 8 as if he's healthy. So we have to kind of wait and see. But for now, I'm ranking him at 8 as if he's healthy.
I have him at 10. He hasn't played a game in 18 months, but he has had a top 5 quarterback finish. Andrew Luck's a great player when healthy. That is a big if. So we'll jump to number 9 for me, Ben Roethlisberger. Roethlisberger he's one of those guys who gets hit every single play and just gets right back up. You talk about Cam Newton being a tough player. I think Ben Roethlisberger is an extremely tough player. Another one of those big body quarterbacks who can just take a hit. He's got people hanging off of him, and he's still dropping dimes down the field. Ben Roethlisberger consistently throwing 30 touchdown seasons. He does turn the ball over sometimes. I know he had that big game against Jacksonville.
5 picks, and I started him last year. 5 picks.
So being here in Ohio, we're not big Steelers fans. Steelers fans are very proud people, and they let you know it.
Well, but also just from being from this area, we hear about all the rumors about Big Ben because he went to Miami here in Ohio, and you hear about all the stories of how he's maybe not such a nice guy.
Uh-huh.
So we tend to be Big Ben haters, but I mean, I have him down at number 11. I mean, you have to rank him as a QB1 every year solely because of the talent around him. He already had
Juju,
the number 1 running back, the number 1 wide receiver, and then you add in Juju Smith-Schuster, who comes out of nowhere, and he wants to put himself into wide receiver 2 territory. So, that you have to rank him a QB1 just because of the skill players around him.
Yep, he's going to get it done. So Andrew Luck is who I have at 10. Who'd you have at 9, Matt? I think
we already touched on
Watson. We did
I
touch
had
on that.
Deshaun Watson down there at 9. So at number 10, I have Matt Stafford. Dave has him at number 11. What do you think about Matt Stafford this year?
I love Matt Stafford every year. I think Matt Stafford, he just gets it done. A guy who you can count on to throw 4,000 yards in a season. He's paid well. He's got good weapons on that team. I'd like to see Kenny G light it up for him this year.
I'm gonna stop you right there because you mentioned I think he has good weapons, but ever since Calvin Johnson left, he hasn't had the great weapon. I think Golden Tate is a good wide receiver. I think Eric Ebron was a good tight end for them.
He's got Marvin Jones now, man.
Marvin Jones is good, but they just don't have any of these top-tier guys that I think that they need for him to really push into kind of, I would say, that top 6, 7 area for Matt Stafford. I mean, again, he's always relevant. He's being drafted as the number 9 quarterback this year, and last year he finished as the number 7 quarterback, so that's pretty impressive based on all of those variables. But
people sleep on Stafford.
Yeah. And again, the volume's there. They like to throw the ball with him because they literally can never run the ball.
So I had Andrew Luck at 10. Matt had Matt Stafford. Matt Stafford is my 11. 11 for Matt is Ben Roethlisberger. So it brings us to my number 12, Jimmy G.
Jimmy G, Dreamboat Garoppolo.
Oh,
Don't you like that name?
I love that name. I probably couldn't say it twice, but I love it. Jimmy G. Dreamboat Garoppolo. It's so smooth. He should put that on a business card. But, I mean, he's the only undefeated quarterback in the NFL.
It's a crazy
He's never
stat, but
lost
it's
a
true.
So we'll see if he can continue it. I mean,
So does that make him 8-0 or 7-0?
7-0.
Okay.
He's a Hall of Famer.
May as well just write it right now. Put that Dreamboat face right on one of those plaques.
I'd love to see him get one more receiver out there.
Des Bryant.
I would love that. I think that's the perfect scenario for Des Bryant. Will it happen? Meh, I don't know, but I think it's a perfect scenario. So whether they get a guy through the draft or Des Bryant.
Yeah, I mean, I have him down at number 14, so not too far away here. Slightly outside of QB1 territory because at the end of the day, it is the San Francisco 49ers who have been atrocious on offense now for several years. So
Yeah, let it go, man.
I'll let it go after I see a full season of production. We've got a little sample size there. He obviously took a bad team and he had them winning games. And he had some decent fantasy outings, but he wasn't throwing for 3 and 4 touchdowns and running for a bunch more. So I still think you need to temper your expectations a little bit. But if they get another skill player like Des Bryant to run the intermediate routes underneath, I think you could put him up a couple spots.
So he's my number 12. Matt, who do you got at 12?
Jared Goff. So Jared Goff would
Wow.
be rounding out my top 12. It can't be understated the season that Jared Goff had last year. I mean, he was on pace to break the record of quarterback rating from rookie year to his second year. He finished just slightly under that, but great skill players out there. I like their young players. I like the addition of Brandon Cooks out there.
Brandon Cooks or Sammy Watkins? If you had to pick one to build a team around.
Right now, Sammy Watkins.
Okay.
Just because of the physical. They're both fast, but Sammy Watkins is bigger, and I'll always take the bigger guy at wide receiver.
I can respect that.
But that's a good question. So what are you thinking about Jared Goff this year out in the revamped Rams?
I mean, I just have to think that the Rams are the sexy team right now.
Yeah.
I mean, they've got the swag, they've got the players, they're in that win now mode. They've got all these big contracts looming. Aaron Donald's talking about not reporting to voluntary workouts because he wants a new deal. All these guys got to get paid.
What's it like for the
Jared
quarterback?
Goff,
Obviously, you don't have a lot of practice time with your new
I
teammates.
think
No,
he
you don't
showed,
have a lot of practice
showed a
time,
couple
and you don't
moments
really want
last
that
year.
much practice time. I mean, you're here
I
in
would just
Orlando
think
with
back
your
to that
family.
game
I think the
they
best
had
part
against
is
the
getting to hang out with
49ers.
the other great players. Maybe hit Disney
You
with
know
your
the game I'm
family.
talking
do.
about where they
and study
both
that
were
playbook
just
when you're by
lighting
the
it up,
pool.
But
back
he
and
looked
forth.
Certainly
so
helps each of
smooth
these
that
coaching
game. I
staffs
mean,
that
throwing
they
the
have
ball
their starting
downfield.
quarterback on their
I mean,
team.
they got
Thursday
something.
night.
They got
NFC, Sean
something
Payton
cooking
of the
with
Saints,
him
the
for
coach,
sure.
Drew Brees, his quarterback.
So
you can't think of
I
one
do
without
got
the
Jared
other.
Goff at
No,
13.
and we talked to Sean
I
Payton
think
about the
he's
playbook, and he said, "Hey, man, instead of
he's
our
got that
code words,
QB1
how to, why
upside.
flutie,
I don't know
we're
if
gonna break
Jared
it out
Goff,
for these
if
guys. We're going to say
they're gonna
Z
call
post,
his
X
number a
dagger,
lot.
fullback flat.
The
So
defense
everyone
looks
at
good
least
this
knows
year.
what to do. We can go out
Todd
and play
Gurley's still
fast
there.
and have fun.
I just
One
don't
of the
know
other
if they're going to
quarterbacks on
ask
the NFC
Jared
side
Goff
is
to throw the
Jared
ball
Goff.
500
To me,
times.
Matt, one of
At
the
the
great
end of the
stories
day,
in
it's
the
going to
league
be
this
hard to
year.
repeat
A year
the
ago at
season
this
he
time, he
just
was
came off
considered by
of. He
many to be a
finished as a
bust.
QB1
No doubt, and for
at
any
number
quarterback
12
that struggled
overall.
this year,
He's
just
currently
look at
being
what,
drafted as a
what
number
happened with
13,
Jared
so we're
Goff.
spot
He
on here
couldn't
with the
even dress
ranking.
to start the season
But
last year. Now he's in the
he's a
Pro
young
Bowl.
guy that's
Really
talented.
one of the
There's a
bright
reason he
young,
was picked at the
you
top of the draft, so
quarterbacks
we'll
in
just
our
have to
game
see how it
right
plays
now,
out for
and,
him.
So he's
I'm happy
13 for
him.
me.
He's done a
Matt
great job
at
this season,
13.
and I'm glad he gets to
intrigued.
come out here and play
Dak
for the Pro Bowl.
Prescott.
The AFC will be
intrigued.
coached by the
I
Steelers
believe in the
staff. Mike
accuracy.
Tomlin
I
has
believe
Ben
in the big arm.
Roethlisberger with
I
him.
know they're losing
Sixth
Des
time
Bryant,
that
and I
Ben's
know
been
that
selected to the Pro Bowl,
they're
but only the third
lacking
time he's
some
played in the
skilled
game as a
players,
defender the
but
last 3 times.
I
It'll be
just
fun to
think
watch.
that from what I see from Dak, and maybe I'm a little jaded based on the way that he started his career, but I'm comfortable drafting Dak, and he's in this weird streamer territory where it's tough to draft him as a QB1, but you want to have him as one of those late round guys because again, he also gives you some yards on the ground, which I've spoke to it a couple times here. I'm huge with quarterbacks if they can run around and get in the end zone with their feet because you got a 6-point versus a 4-point, and the yards are obviously more as well.
Sure, he had 350 rushing yards last year and 6 touchdowns on the ground.
That's just great. I mean, you can't beat that production from a guy that you're not drafting as a QB1. You finished last year not too bad. QB1, number 10 overall, so he was a QB1 last year, currently being drafted as the number 14 quarterback this year. I think Dak Prescott may surprise some guys this year.
So what worries me about Dak is his completion percentage. He only threw for 62% last year, and that kind of translated as far as accuracy in the interceptions. He had 22 touchdowns and 13 interceptions. I just don't think Dak's a terribly accurate quarterback. Maybe part of that is with Des Bryant. I saw a stat with Des Bryant that he only had 60% of the balls thrown to him that were considered catchable balls. So that's a big hit on Dak Prescott to me. I think the next worst, as far as catch percentage balls thrown to him, was Marvin Jones, actually.
Oh, yeah.
For Detroit. And you think of Matt Stafford as typically accurate. But, it was just kind of something that stuck out to me. I think maybe Des Bryant might have got a knock because Dak Prescott's not a very accurate quarterback. But, he can still get it done for you as far as fantasy goes.
Yep.
So Dak Prescott is your 13, 14 for me. Phillip Rivers. Phillip Rivers is just, he's constantly flirting with that QB1 range year after year.
Great streamer. Every year, great streamer.
Absolutely. I mean, Phillip Rivers is a guy that you can find in, round 10, 11. He's just going to be a late round quarterback that you could just pick up and just throw in.
And that offense always seems to produce. Always.
Yeah. I mean, he's going to be that consistent 15 to 20 point guy for you every week.
Yeah, and I mean, I have him down at 17, so 3 spots below Dave. It's just for me, the only reason I rank him a little bit lower is because he is getting older, even though you're not really seeing the true regression. I go back to last year, the Jacksonville Jaguars were just shutting down quarterbacks. High-level quarterbacks, putting up 8 fantasy points against the Jaguars, and Phillip Rivers comes out casually on the road and puts up 240 and 2 against the Jaguars. So he could still bring it. He's just going to give you some low weeks, but he's pretty consistent there in the teens for his points.
He's one of those aging quarterbacks from that 2004 quarterback draft
Loaded
class.
draft.
It's just amazing with Ben Roethlisberger and Eli. So yeah, I see what you mean on the back end of his career. Those two guys are borderline out of the league. So Roethlisberger maybe a year left. Eli Manning, who knows? So I like the Phillip Rivers at 14. Matt, who's your 14?
So my number 14, we spoke to him, the Dreamboat, Jimmy G. Garoppolo. So we can move on to number 15. Who you got at 15?
So the most intriguing quarterback by far, he's even going to be more intriguing to me than any of these rookies coming out, is Patrick Mahomes.
You got him ranked pretty high, so you've got to like him.
I like him because Andy Reid has to like him.
Mm-hmm.
To do what he did, to trade off Alex Smith like that, all of these weapons at his disposal, I just have to think that Patrick Mahomes is set up for a big job. So I hope he's bringing his big boy pants to work. Because
Andy Reid just made Alex Smith number 1 in passer rating in the NFL last year. And he was number 1 in throwing the ball 20 yards downfield. So with a bigger arm like Pat Mahomes, you can only think that he's going to get the chance to throw the ball downfield.
Andy Reid was saying that he's way ahead of schedule. He knows the plays. He's calling the motions. He's recognizing coverages. So Sammy Watkins is there. He's got a lot of fast receivers. I just hope he's doing some shoulder exercises to keep that arm loose, because he's going to be dropping 70-yard bombs.
Absolutely.
Week in, week out.
and I have him down at 19, and it's just because I haven't seen enough. I know that it looks sexy on paper when you look at Sammy Watkins and Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill and Kareem Hunt. We can go on and on and on, but I just put him down at 19 just because I haven't seen it yet. And I also am usually down on wide receivers with new teams, so I do think it's smart to limit your expectations on Sammy Watkins a little bit too. So we'll just have to – it'll be an interesting one to see. We're all going to keep our eyes open for the Chiefs this year.
So Patrick Mahomes is my 15. Matt has the crab leg king, Jameis Winston.
Oh, famous Jameis. We've been waiting for Jameis to really, really peak, and he's had some regression. If you watch Tampa Bay Bucks games, Jameis Winston will do things that make you shake your head, things that NFL quarterbacks don't do. He's getting tackled by a sack, and he'll literally throw the ball up. So the guy does turn the ball over from time to time, but I still like the offense, and I still like the weapons. I like Deshaun Jackson, Mike Evans. They have two great tight ends that I think work together very well with Cameron Brate and O.J. Howard. I can only see, in my eyes, a positive regression from Jameis Winston this year. He's currently being drafted as the number 16 quarterback, so we're kind of right on par here. What do you think about Jameis's output this year, Dave?
So it's just what you said. Like, I watched the Tampa Bay Hard Knocks last year, and Dirk Cutter seriously laid into him every single time for his poor decision making. And that's the whole knock on Jameis Winston, is he just does not make good decisions with the ball.
But just like Phillip Rivers, he's in this range where from week to week we're going to be able to stream him. So matchup dependent, but he'll put up some good outings for you for sure.
He'll get you a little bit on the ground. I think that's kind of what saves Jameis Winston as well. He only had 135 yards last year. So, he can get you a couple points at least on the ground. He's going to turn the ball over. He's going to have some erratic weeks. We'll see if he can take better care of the ball. I do have Jameis Winston at 17. So my number 16 guy is Dak Prescott, which we talked about. I still think Dak Prescott can be somewhat valuable for fantasy, but, losing Des Bryant might hurt him. Matt, who's your 16?
Number 16 for me is Matty Ice, Matt Ryan, who did bite me last year. I did not draft him as a crazy high guy, but I did draft him to start on my team, and I waited and I waited and I waited, and it was constant 230 and 1, 240 and 1. I feel like I waited until midseason for him to throw more than one touchdown in a game. I'm still ranking him a little bit higher than what I think a lot of people see this year, just because I did see an MVP season for him. So how are you feeling about Matt Ryan this year?
I do not like Matt Ryan. I've never liked Matt Ryan, even though he
had
that
MVP
great
season?
year. I know, even though he had the great year 2 years ago. I knew it was a fluke. I never bought into it. Matt Ryan is at 19 for me. I think that he can have streamable weeks. I just don't like Matt Ryan.
Too much Robitussin for you, Dave.
I might need some more. I'm not a big fan of Matt Ryan. I never have been. I watched a lot of games being a Saints fan in NFC South. It's not a rivalry thing. I just don't think Matt Ryan can throw a good ball. I've seen him try to link up with Julio quite a few times. When he's accurate, and when he's off, Matt Ryan can't hit anything. So let's take it to my number 17. I have Jameis Winston there. Like we said, Jameis Winston is a great upside guy. You have Phillip Rivers at 17. My 18 and your 18 are the same. Alex Smith.
And I feel like we're doing him a little bit of a disservice here. Now, again, new team, new offense with talent that's not as good, but he still finished as the 4th-ranked quarterback last year, which 4 points behind Cam Newton for number 2, which, again, is baffling. He's being drafted as the number 20 quarterback this year, so our ranking is spot on. How do you see him playing out in Washington this year?
I think it's a big downgrade for Alex Smith. I don't think that they have the team makeup that Alex Smith really is kind of used to.
I will say,
City.
just keep your eyes on the tight ends in Washington, though.
Sure.
He loves the tight end. He has his
Jordan
entire
Reed,
career.
Vernon Davis.
Yeah, so watch the tight ends there for sure.
So, yeah, Alex Smith he's kind of one of those guys that, he's not sexy by any means, but he had some amazing weeks last year. So we'll slot him there at 18. So 19 for me. I will put Matt Ryan there. I do think Matt Ryan can have those fluky games, but I think they're just that, fluky games. Number 19 for Matt. He's going to put Pat Mahomes. So that's probably our biggest difference. Would you say so?
Yep, it is. 4 spots is our biggest
so
difference.
4-spot difference. I got Mahomes at 15. So that's going to take us to 20. And I'm going to bring in the sophomore, my quarterback for Allen Robinson, Mitch Trubisky.
Who I don't even have ranked in my top 25.
See,
So actually,
I'm
this
buying
would
into
be
the
our
whole
biggest mover.
offense. So this might be our biggest difference.
It is.
So Mitch Trubisky. I have to buy into Matt Nagy, made Alex Smith look great last year, and what they're building on that offense. I think that him having Kendall Wright last year, Jay Bellamy, just did not do him a good service for his rookie season. Matt,
I just want to have all the listeners know. So currently, we're going to hold Dave to this because we love these guys that you like. So right now, Dave is going to be taking Mitch Trubisky over Marcus Mariota,
Yep.
Case Keenum, Sam Bradford, Derek Carr, Blake Bortles,
100%.
Andy Dalton.
Way over Andy Dalton. Way over Andy Dalton.
Here we are in Ohio as Andy Dalton haters, as we all are. So
I mean, Trubisky, he only had 2,100 yards through the air, 7 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. I think the skies, he can only go up from here. So I have faith in him this year. We'll see. So, Matt, at 20, who are you sneaking in?
number 20,
Derek Carr.
you hate Derek Carr. I did pull the stat last year under pressure. He had a quarterback rating of 40.8.
That's probably too high.
And the only quarterbacks in the league that were worse were Brett Hundley, Trevor Siemian, and Deshaun Kaiser. It's for me.
None of which have starting jobs any longer.
Well, again, so I talked about this in the first podcast. I see value in Jordy Nelson. I see an uptick in production out of this offense with John Gruden. It can only get better. It was a terrible, terrible season for Derek Carr after he got paid a lot of money. So I just only see it going up. And I don't think ranking him at 20 is too high, to be honest with you.
That's way too high. I think you're on drugs. You had some Robitussin.
Maybe just a sip.
So that's going to wrap up our quarterbacks. Let's jump in, Matt. Tight ends. So number 1 for me, I got to put him here. Gronk is number 1. Just the difference between Gronk and Zach Ertz, who was the number 2 tight end last year.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was almost 4 points a game more. So Gronkowski is my number 1 until I hear that he's no longer on the Patriots with Tom Brady. And he's the only weapon they have to throw the ball to. Matt, who's your number 1?
It's Gronk. I traded for Gronk last year, and then I traded away Gronk. We all know that when Gronk plays, Gronk's going to most likely be the number 1 tight end. We just got to keep an eye on his status to see where his head's at this year. But if he's on the field and he's with Tom Brady, he's going to be your number 1 for sure.
So we have a little bit of a discrepancy at number 2 here. My number 2 is Travis Kelce. I just think Travis Kelce is, next to Gronk, he's the most talented tight end. He's everything that you kind of look for. I know he may not look it, but Travis Kelce is extremely athletic. I hope they design a lot of plays for him like they did last year. He had a lot of ball screens go his way, and he made the most with what was thrown to him. So who is a rookie quarterback's best friend? Tight end.
And that is exactly why I am ranking Zach Ertz number 2, and I have Travis Kelce down at number 3. It's just for the fact that I trust what Carson Wentz and Zach Ertz had last year. I saw what they built, and now with Travis Kelce, we've got a little bit of a wild card here. It all relies upon the production of Pat Mahomes. We all know he's going to be a top tier. Again, I think more than any other position, we're talking about our tier 1s. After Gronk, Travis Kelce, and Zach Ertz, you've got a severe drop-off. But I think all 3 of these guys you can be comfortable drafting relatively high in the draft just because of their usage in the offense.
They'll
for sure.
all be gone within the first 4 rounds.
Absolutely.
Easily.
Yep.
So, yeah, I think I've got Zach Ertz at 3. I agree. It's just that tier. Zach Ertz and Carson Wentz looked great. even if Carson Wentz can't play and Nick Foles starts the season, Zach Ertz didn't miss a beat with Nick Foles whatsoever. So I think he's locked as a top 3 option. Number 4 for me, I'm going to go with the upside guy who could potentially break into that top tier.
Yeah, he's definitely got the talent and the size. The talent and the size to do it. Sorry, I cut you off there before you even said the player. I agree. Evan Ingram excites me. When you watch him play, he's definitely a beast among men out there.
Yeah.
He looks the part for sure. And when you look at the body types of those tier 1 guys, like you said, I think he's going to be the next one to move into that. It's all about consistency at quarterback, whether that's Eli Manning or someone else this year. We don't really know.
Right.
We just have to keep an eye on that quarterback situation there.
Yeah, I mean, they can split him out wide. He's a wide receiver playing tight end, or vice versa. Tight end playing wide receiver.
Yeah, and I mean, it was impressive.
Jimmy Graham type of player.
Yeah, it's impressive as a rookie to finish as the 5th ranked tight end in fantasy, which is what he had last year. So
you never see that.
It's pretty impressive.
You never see rookie tight ends catch on so quick. So we both have him at 4. Number 5 for me, Greg Olsen. It's just Greg Olsen's consistent. I think he's the only weapon that Cam Newton has. So I think Greg Olsen and Cam Newton have always kind of had that, same wavelength. They've been on the same page. I think Cam Newton makes Greg Olsen a top 5 tight end as long as they're together.
I feel like Greg Olsen has been around for 40 years, and he's always producing, and him and Cam do have something. I mean, you've seen how that offense changed last year when Greg Olsen went down with the foot injury. He just doesn't have as much upside as some of these other guys that we're talking about. I have him ranked at number 6, so just one spot away from Dave. But, it's Cam Newton and it's Greg Olsen, and they have their connection. So no matter what, if he's healthy, he's going to be a good tight end for you.
So who's your 5?
So my 5 is Jimmy Graham.
Okay.
It's tough picking new guys and new offenses, but it is Aaron Rodgers, and what's even trickier about this...
You're picking a tight end in Green Bay.
I was just going to say, I mean, that offense never features the tight end. Again, it's the days of Jermichael Finley when they actually had a tight end that stood out to you a little bit. But they've never had a guy like Jimmy Graham, and I know he's had some injuries. The patellar tendon injury is proven to slow you down, and it's one of the harder injuries to come back from. But he was productive last year, and I don't think he's lost all of his spark. But you just take the upside of Aaron Rodgers here, and how many passing touchdowns there are to go around. You got to think about what's going to be with Jordy leaving. Some of those double touchdown seasons that Jordy had, where are those going to go? Devontae Adams can't have them all, so somebody's got to catch them. So I think Jimmy Graham is going to be on the positive side of some of those touchdowns.
I got Jimmy Graham at 10, so that's a big jump,
mover.
Man. It's a big jump. Hunter Henry is my number 6. I just think Antonio Gates is gone. It's Hunter Henry's time to shine. Phillip Rivers has kind of always featured the tight end role. I don't know if Hunter Henry is that kind of elite talent as far as separation, getting open. He's just a big body. He's going to be targeted by Phillip Rivers. I mean, I don't know if his ceiling is super high, but I think his floor is very high.
Yeah,
so he's going to get the rock.
Yeah, his ceiling is high enough because he is in an offense where they decide to feature the tight end a lot of times. We did see him put up some zeros last year in a couple games, which is a little scary, but it all came down to the game plan. I have Hunter Henry down at number 8. It's not too far away. Not as much upside as I see in some of these other guys, but like Dave said, you should be able to rely on a pretty safe floor from Hunter Henry this year with how they'll use him.
So number 6 for you, Matt?
Number 6 for me is Greg Olsen.
So number 7 for me, Delaney Walker. I just think Delaney Walker perennially is on the same page with Marcus Mariota. Just when you think Delaney Walker's done and you try to write him off, he catches 5 balls for 80 yards and a touchdown. It's just, he's always open. Him and Marcus Mariota, they click.
He
So
very, very quietly finished as the number 4 tight end last year.
every year.
Very, very quiet.
So number 7 for you, Matt?
Kyle Rudolph. Kyle Rudolph, I tell you what, won me some weeks last year. Had some big touchdown games, and I think you get an upgraded quarterback, and you get a quarterback who loves the tight end, like Kirk Cousins.
Yep.
I only see things getting better for Kyle Rudolph this year. He doesn't have the blazing speed of some of these guys at the top, our Travis Kelce's and the Zach Ertz and the Evan Egrons of the world, but you can tell he's a very smart football player. He came out of that pro-style offense at Notre Dame, but he's just a good, gritty football player and finds ways to get open. And if they're going to feature him in the red zone like they did last year with a better quarterback, again, I only see his stock rising.
I agree. I think if they draw up some more plays for Kyle Rudolph, he constantly. I just think back last year, Thanksgiving, he just had that amazing game, and I think that's kind of Kyle Rudolph's norm. Is that Kyle Rudolph can have those explosive games, but I think he's going to do a little bit better this year with Kirk Cousins than he did last year. With Sam Bradford and Case Keenum. So I do have Kyle Rudolph at my number 9, but I like Kyle Rudolph this year.
Tell us who you have one spot above Kyle Rudolph.
So I am slotting in Trey Burton.
And before you talk, I like Trey Burton. So I'm not going to get on you too hard about the number 8 ranking, but tell us why you love him.
So I just have to think that he's going to be the Travis Kelce again in that offense in Chicago. I think they're going to try to feature a lot of plays for him. I think that they're trying to build that Kansas City offense of last year in Chicago. I keep buying into that narrative. And if that's the case, then I see that there's going to be a lot of looks for Trey Burton. I know people are staying away. He doesn't really have a great track record or, something prolific for people to go off of. So I think that's kind of why he gets a knock. But I'm going to slot him at 8. It's, call it bold, call it whatever. I just think right guy, right situation.
And we're ranking our top 12 for you this week at tight end. I have him outside of my top 12. You guys know I do like Trey Burton. In the first episode, he was my impact free agent at tight end, so I do like Trey Burton. But at number 8, it's a little bit of a reach, but I do agree in the fact that I think he is going to get a ton of targets with Mitch Trubisky struggling in that offense and him having to check down a lot. So I do think he'll get the looks. I just don't know if he'll get the downfield looks in the way that Travis Kelce was featured in that kind of offense last year. So we'll have to wait and see.
So number 8 for you got Hunter Henry in there, which we spoke upon. Number 9 for me, Kyle Rudolph, which we mentioned. 9 for you, Delaney Walker. Brings us to my number 10, Jimmy Graham. So that's going to be probably our biggest difference. Maybe Trey Burton's our biggest difference.
Trey Burton is our biggest difference.
You've got him way down there. So what is that?
I like him in the 17 range. I like him as a late round
17?
steal. I can't see him yet as a starting tight end.
I'm ranking him where I think they'll finish, not necessarily where I would draft him. So I think I'm just kind of looking for him as a value play.
Sure.
Number 11 for me, David Njoku. I just think David Njoku is a talented player, and I just hope the Browns use him right. I mean, he had flashes of really good games. I think that Josh Gordon being there, Jarvis Landry being there, Coleman, that offense is just going to be spread wide open.
For me, it's all about Tyrod Taylor being there. Tyrod Taylor made Charles Clay a top 10 tight end perennially. I think he'll probably make David Njoku a top 12. I've got David Njoku down at number 12, so I think he will crack starter territory this year. But for me, it's all about Tyrod Taylor. I mean, again, he's not a downfield thrower for the most part. He loves the crossing routes with the tight end, and he loves the checkdowns. So I can see David Njoku getting a lot of work this year.
Matt, I think I just checked it out here. We skipped over your 10.
You did.
Jordan Reed.
And it's because he's so easy to skip, right? It's Jordan Reed. Injury plagued. We got concussions, ribs, legs, everything on Jordan Reed is hurt. But I slot him in just above or just inside of my starter area for tight ends because of the upside and when he plays. And also, you've got Alex Smith coming in, another guy who loves to throw to the tight end. So
Yeah.
you have to think about it. Week 1, if Jordan Reed comes out healthy, he's immediately a top 10 play,
Sure.
no matter what. And I will just go ahead and speak to who I have right with him, right behind him, Tyler Eifert. These are two guys that I think are very alike in the way that they get hurt all the time. They're barely on the field. But when they're on their field,
Very risky.
You have to fire them up. You have to.
Both of those guys, I would say, if you're going to roster on your team, that you need a backup. That you need to keep 2 tight ends on your team.
Yeah.
Or at least if you're in a shallow bench league, just you're going to end up streaming a guy at some point. That's just my thought. So I got Jordan Reed at 13, just outside of my top 12, just because, I am anticipating him missing games, as Jordan Reed does. So your number 11 then is, as you mentioned, Tyler Eifert.
Where do you have Tyler Eifert, Dave? You've got him down at number 20.
He's in the oblivion. Like he's at McDonald's.
If he plays, if you start the week and Tyler Eifert is not on the injury report, he has to be a top 10 tight end. You have to start him no matter what.
He's going to get hurt in the second play of that game.
It's a possibility.
You're going to be
it's
real
a possibility.
sad.
So who do you have rounding out your top 12?
My number 12 guy, George Kittle.
Okay.
So George Kittle, I think, is a upside guy. I like his situation with Jimmy G. I think Jimmy G is going to look his way a lot. I think it's more of a volume thing. I think that Pierre Garçon and Marquise Goodwin are going to need a little bit of help, and I think George Kittle can be that guy for Jimmy G, just kind of that blanket for him. So I think George Kittle's a sneaky play this year.
Yeah, I have him outside of he's kind of, in your eyes, your last tight end starter in 12-team leagues. I have him outside the top 12. I just got to see a little bit more from him. He actually single-handedly beat me one week when he scored his touchdown. I literally lost on that play, so I don't like George Kittle very much because that play is sticking in my head. But again, Jimmy G, very accurate. I can see him featuring the tight end. I just have to see it.
So that's going to be it for tight ends. That's going to wrap up our rankings. So you guys now have our running back rankings, our wide receiver rankings, our quarterback, and our tight end rankings. So these are all way too early. We do not have rookies in it yet. We're excited. We're counting it down. The NFL draft next week.
We're a week and a half away, right?
Yeah. Next week, man. Next Thursday.
Yeah, there we go.
So I'm excited.
And the NFL schedule comes out tomorrow, so it's going to be an exciting week.
Did you also see that they're trying to do away with the Color Rush jerseys?
I did, and I'm not unhappy about that. I can see them go. Yeah.
Hated it. Didn't want to see mustard versus ketchup out there. So that's going to wrap up the rankings. Let's jump into poor Bailey got her first shots.
Yeah, this is
on
awful. I've being the man in the family, you always get the job of holding the baby's ankles. Yeah, and you see the needle go in, and you see the anguish just creep into the face of the child, and to such a scream that it's hard to watch. So how'd Bailey react, Dave?
She was the happiest baby in the entire world there the whole time. Like, the doctor's really excited. Like, oh, you've got a happy baby, giving us all this positive feedback. And then she walks in.
The needle sinks into the skin.
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, I handled it well. I do fine with that. It was pretty sad. She screamed really loud.
Yeah.
She was very unhappy. Katie, I could see her eyes starting to swell up a little bit. Her little baby getting poked with the needle.
It really is terrible. I mean, when you think about it, they just don't know what that kind of pain is like, and then, it's terrible.
Katie told me this story, so listen to this. I don't know if you can relate. So you grew up in Springfield.
Mm-hmm.
So she told me she went to a doctor, and they did the actual visitation with the doctor in one room, And then if you had to have any blood work or any vaccinations or any shots whatsoever, you had to go into another room. Well, this other room was apparently 3 floors down an elevator. So she said as a kid that she knew
Oh, I
that
see.
if she was going to get poked with a needle as soon as she got on this elevator.
I don't know where she was vaccinated, but that's not how my childhood was.
Doesn't it sound like some kind of mental asylum?
It does, yeah.
Like,
you go down this like doom elevator to the
that's
basement.
just what I picture. Just this like rickety, like solid steel elevator with like a gate that pops up.
Oh yeah.
And you go down this hallway, like the lights like flickering maybe. So, yeah, I was curious if you knew of this facility, but
at least
not.
at the end of the day, you know that Bailey won't get mumps and she won't get rubella. She won't get the plague death.
Yeah, no plague of death. I think she's good. So you're gonna like this stat. She is in the 10th percentile for head size. So,
whereas my child is the 95th percentile. So
my child has
opposite sides of the
peanut head.
spectrum there.
And your child can fit a size medium adult hat.
That's very true.
So, all right, Matt.
Well, yeah. So first I'll tell you. So my official D-Day here is it's coming. It's in about 3.5 weeks. But based on some symptoms and some feelings from my wife, I think D-Day is going to be coming a little bit sooner. I'm going to guess 2 weeks from now.
Wow.
We're going to be delivering little Corbin, and I can't wait. But my wife, she's hurting right now, and again, I feel bad for her because I can't do anything about it. So
it's a terrible time.
So the reason I'm saying
pregnancy.
this is a week ago, my wife wakes up in the middle of the night. She's very sick. She doesn't know why. It seems like it's food poisoning, so she's puking all night. It's not good. Here she is, 8 months pregnant, and she's puking her guts out, and she can't stop. So she makes her way out to the living room and makes her way then to the kitchen. She's moving around because she can't be comfortable. So she starts to vomit into the kitchen sink, and it's about 3 in the morning, and I'm sleeping still, so I'm kind of like half sleeping through all this period.
Naturally, 3 in the morning.
Yeah, well, you can hear them getting sick, but
Yeah.
you're kind of in and out of sleep, and you want to help, but at the end of the day, they feel miserable, so you stay away. So she calls out for me and says, Matt, I need your help. So I stumble out into the living room. It's dark. I look down, and the floor's wet. And I said, Taylor, did your water break while you were vomiting? And, you know, she's hysterical. She's upset, and she's sick. She says, I don't know. So I turn on the light, and I'm like, Taylor, I think your water broke. And she says, no, I think I peed. And I go, what do you mean you think you peed? And she's like, I think I peed. It's hard to feel down there. I'm so pregnant, and I'm puking, so I can't feel it. So here I am investigating at 3:15 in the morning the consistency of this wetness on the ground. Come to find out, it was pee. So here I am in my middle of the night. I pulled the first cleaner from under the sink, and of course it was some sort of like granite countertop cleaner that I sprayed on the nice compressed wood floor or whatever. But at any rate, she peed all over the floor, and I had to clean it up. So welcome to pregnant life.
So, I mean, that's definitely a dad moment right there. So,
Yeah.
Dad to be.
Cleaning up urine in the middle of the night, not from my baby, but
Dad to
from
be,
my
you'll never
pregnant
know.
wife.
Yeah. You're going to do a lot worse things, man. There's a lot worse things in store for you.
We need this baby to come into the world, so hopefully you guys are pulling for me.
So you're going to appreciate this story. So my wife, like, if she hears a tune, like on TV, she'll hum it, and she'll have no idea why, right? So I come in the house today, and she's sitting there with a baby, and Bailey's middle name is different, and you're gonna like it. So my baby's middle name is Quinn, so her name's Bailey Quinn, so we call her Bailey Q. And she's just sitting there on the couch, and she's like, Bailey Q, and I'm like, well, why do I know that jingle? And I was like, is that the bag of weed jingle from Family Guy? So she's sitting here singing my daughter's name to the bag of weed jingle from Family Guy, and I'm just like dying laughing. Oh, she was like, she didn't even know though. Like she was probably watching Family Guy or something.
Just stuck in her head,
and it was stuck in her head. So I had to give her crap for that, man. But so that's gonna wrap up this week's episode, Draft Dads. Thank you guys for joining us in today. Please follow us on Twitter, DraftDadDave. Follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/DraftDads. Reach out to us. We want to hear from you guys. Let us know we're doing a good job. Subscribe. Leave a 5-star review for us, please. It helps us out a lot. Matt is doing a little bit of work on Instagram.
Yep, we're on Instagram as well. We started that up this week, so you can see us on there at draft_dads. And I'll be on there, and I'll be in touch, and we'll be posting the next episode on there as well.
So thanks for listening, guys. We will catch you next week.
We appreciate it. We'll see you guys next time.
Draft week.